I do want to bring some information to the chamber. As I understand it, I know our annual allotments for school construction has fluctuated, but over the last decade, we have certainly seen some struggles on our state budget, and Lord knows, we know the struggles have been difficult. And in the past budget cycle, we've allotted $437 million in 2020 and $419 million in 2021 to fund our school construction projects. As I'm reading this bill, it is putting our total allotment up over $444 million. Now, there's some significance to this because where we were and what we can afford, and when we passed the bond bill, that legislation was passed on March 11th, before the pandemic hit us and before our revenue numbers dropped. And unfortunately, when consensus revenue was done, which is, sort of our trigger, that was done in April before we really knew, we still don't know what our real revenue numbers are. And because of that concern, this side of the aisle had requested that the governor use his executive power and adopt new revenue numbers in July, and do a consensus revenue process in July when all of the new tax payments came in, because they were all delayed into July, so we had a better handle on where the state of Connecticut would be. That never happened. We also have a statutory requirement that the Finance Committee needs to meet before July 1st if there are changes in circumstances that may cause us to want to look at our revenue numbers. And regardless, every July we need to go in and take that vote. That never happened. So now we're here today approving more bonding. And what people should notice is that when the treasurer has been issuing these debt service letters, in these letters, they're basing this information off of April numbers. So right now, our bonding capacity in the latest is putting us somewhere at 83%. But there's a footnote here that says that consensus revenue estimated on April 2020 by OPM and OFA revised estimate revenues downward by $2.7 billion from the original adopted revenues. Using the adjusted revenue amounts, the debt limit calculation would result in a debt limit percentage of 98.24%, which I believe will cause the state of Connecticut, once we have new revenue numbers, that we are going to need to look to cancel 9% of our bond indebtedness. And yet today, we're potentially moving forward on a project that is over potentially $185 million of state dollars. And what I find so offensive about this project is it is leapfrogging over our entire process that we have set up. And I know this process has evolved. Typically, we never used to need to have local approval before projects got on the grant list. We now require that local approval because what would happen is the state would approve too many projects and they would never come to fruition. I heard discussions of comparisons of the Ram High School got this amount of money. Well, that money did get approved at some point in time by this legislature, and guess what? The project never happened because it was never far enough along down the tracks in order to get that funding. And now today, we're faced with potentially having to cancel bond projects a month from now, worthy projects that might be shovel-ready, because we're going to put this project on the books. It's going to leapfrog everything else. And I get particularly upset because I know what my town is going through right now. We have a high school that has a basement that is flooded 364 days a year. We've gone through the agonizing process of trying to get our school approved. 30% of my town is made up of a public utility. So the tax dollars we receive in are limited. And we have about a 50% reimbursement rate. And so the town struggles to make the decisions. And they got their application in on July 1st, and they broke their backs to get it in, to start the process and get on the priority list. And I sit here today and I explain to them how they needed to do it. We were working with DAS and OPM, and we had all those conversations. And yet, this project is going to leapfrog even over my town that is trying to get into the hopper at a point in time where potentially 98% of our indebtedness is going to be sucked up 2 months from now. I know, so much we talk about in this chamber about fairness. Part of our discussions that we've tried to do is to make things fair. We've seen it with the police accountability bill and this energy bill. We talk about trying to be fair to everybody and look at people that are impoverished or in different positions. But we had private conversations in a room that generates this type of Section 5. And to me, this is the definition of privilege, that so much in this chamber we rail against externally. And so because of that, the clerk is in possession of LCO 4472. I ask that it be called and I be allowed to summarize.
Will the clerk please call LCO number 4472, designated as House Amendment Schedule A.
House Amendment Schedule A, offered by Representative Candelora, Representative O'Day.
Representative seeks leave of the chamber to summarize the amendment. Is there objection? Is there objection? Hearing none, Representative Candelora, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this amendment merely strikes Section 5, which would be to eliminate this project at this time. It would reduce the state construction bill by $185 million. I move adoption.
Mr. Speaker, I do rise in strong support of the amendment that's before us. Now, we've heard all of the fiscal arguments. I believe Representative Candelora certainly highlighted that and made a perfect argument as to how this, even on the books, may impact future necessary projects and bonding. It also, unfortunately, leaps, as he described it, ahead of all the other projects that were properly filed in a timely basis. So I heard over and over today and previously that the best way to pass legislation in this building is in a bipartisan manner. There is no better process for a bipartisan manner but the process we have, being properly vetted and selected through the committee process. This item was not gone through the committee process. What we are essentially doing now is allowing a very expensive project that has not been vetted, that statements in this room contradict reports and articles, contradicts a variety of different things. I hear elementary schools in Norwalk are on a priority. I don't know who to believe. I didn't have the opportunity to ask because this was placed on this list for us to vote right here, right now, with no further discussion. That's not a bipartisan manner. That's not the process we have for school construction. And it's not just all fiscal. It's respect the process. Respect all the other schools. No doubt. We want IBM to stay. We want IBM to invest, and I hope they invest in Norwalk. And I look forward to bringing students from across the state. And I hope those students then stay in the state of Connecticut and continue to invest. But what are we saying about the elementary school in Norwalk that is a priority? Or an elementary school in any other place in the state of Connecticut? We just heard about flooding in a school that can't get funding, and we have a project of this cost, this magnitude, that we are now saying that we want to fund for 80% of the project without any vetting, without any respect of the process? Why? At this hour? Why? In a special session? Why? And it's not going to be done anytime soon. Why are we then addressing this now? Let's respect the projects that the good representative I heard from the other side, that the committee took the time to go to the town, examine the project, meet the kids, meet the students. I encourage everyone to please take a moment. We've been here all day. I understand. I want to go home too. But take a moment. Think about why we're up here and what we're doing. It's not all about the money, but it's about the respect of the process. So Mr. Speaker, as much as I hope and I wish that we'd have more opportunities for these exchanges, I'll take this opportunity to say thank you for your leadership and mentorship as well. And for the rest of the chamber, I ask you to please support the amendment.